everyone. Welcome to the M2M Network. This is the special episode on the couch. I'm with Ethan, Yusra, and Khalin, and we're going to talk about Loki. Yeah, so yesterday we had um, a special episode, episode 4. So I just want everyone reaction of it. So Ethan, what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, so I think I was pretty happy with it. I was kind of confused. I liked the show mostly, I'd say. After episode 3, I think I was the most confused about where it was going to go. But I thought episode 4 kind of brought a lot of the threads together in an interesting way that left me wanting to know what was going to happen next, as well as just being generally compelled by the way the show wrote its characters and structured its plot. Obviously, I think a lot of us, people who are on the internet too much, like had the idea that like there was kind of going to be some shocking moment coming, but I still think we don't know exactly what that's going to amount to. So that should be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the episode was all right. Like the initial reaction I had to the show was mostly positive because the setting was so unique and it seemed like they were gonna delve into deeper topics or present a totally new enemy and new challenge for the characters. But in this episode and the last one as well, it seems like it's becoming more and more of a typical Marvel show and a typical Marvel production, and like it's the focus is immediately off of the aesthetics of the show or like the philosophy of it, and more on the boss fights and like the snarky Loki comments and everything. And I don't know, it feels like a disconnect from like the initial like atmosphere that it set up. So now it's more like okay, Loki's gonna probably have some kind of a romantic relationship with Sylvie or something, and it was like okay, it seems like a little forced to me, but I don't know where that's gonna go. Yeah. But one thing I did like was that the backstory of not the fleshed out backstory because we don't know much about the other TVA employees, but yeah, where they have originated from, how do the time keepers, I don't know, snatch them from Earth, or yeah, the little bit about that woman's story. Her and the other guy, Mobius, right? Yeah, their stories seem the most compelling to me right now because they're the most different. And Loki, he begins to like fall into predictable plot lines quite often. So yeah, let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I think that the episode 3 was like probably the weakest, where they were just like going around looking for their iPad charger. I thought that was kind of stupid. But this episode was definitely more interesting and compelling. And I thought it was kind of clear that like the TVA or whatever is going to be like the bad guys. Like I thought that was a pretty clear direction the show was heading.
But didn't they do that too quickly though? Like
I mean, it's a 6-episode show. Guys. It's a 6-episode
show. Is it?
So
I thought it was 8.
I think that's something.
Okay.
I kind of agreed with what Yusra said, and I think that we're seeing a trend with Marvel shows. The one thing I would criticize them for is that you're seeing that in some ways, I think this like 6-episode format might be a little constraining, and you kind of see that like they kind of have to put everything into its like basest form where
they also waste so much time though in the middle. Like in episode 3, they wasted so much time, and they could have shown more.
Yeah, like in a 6-episode season, you don't really have much time for filler, especially in a TV show format. Like I said, them going around that moon looking for their iPad charger, I think was kind of useless. And I mean, the whole point was to set up their whole relationship, which I think it's still weird. Like
it's extremely weird.
If what they were trying to do was make it seem less weird, then I don't really think they
did not
achieve that, because like it's still pretty weird.
Yeah, I mean, Loki makes sense. Loki makes sense that Loki would be narcissistic enough to fall in love with himself. But like last episode, we had like canon canon confirmed bisexualness for Loki, and then we just like straight back falling into, okay, no, it's fine. We're gonna pair him up with his own, alternate universe self because who cares? They just said, they threw it out of the window. So that was pretty disappointing.
I think you're just seeing them the same way people said the movies were formulaic. I think everyone had a lot of high hopes for WandaVision. I did like the show overall, but you're kind of seeing that they kind of hit the same beats and follow the same trend, where I almost feel like the TV shows could have been an opportunity to be really creative and off the wall with things. But I ultimately can't get too mad. I think we kind of know what we're getting with Marvel the last few years.
It almost feels like a betrayal, though, doesn't it? Like they start off and they, just pull you in with these interesting sets and, it's interesting, atmosphere, and it makes you feel like it'll be like a scene right out of a short story or something by Kafka. But like then it's just a Marvel show, and
I think like
it's our fault.
I think like WandaVision is the clear like example of that. Like the first, I don't know, 6 or 7 episodes were pretty out there, and then the last episode was like a CGI skybeam fight. Like
basically.
And I think WandaVision was pretty strong overall. I mean, I have no interest in rewatching it because I didn't really like the ending. But I think this show is definitely better than the Captain America show or the Falcon and Winter Soldier show.
But it's like WandaVision was better because of Wanda and Vision, right? Because their relationship was so like we got invested in it and we wanted to know more about what happened with it. But like Loki, like the character himself is interesting, and I think Tom Wilson is doing a great job portraying him. But other than that, Mobius is a good character too in the set.
But it's just Owen Wilson playing Owen Wilson. Like it's fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Owen Wilson always does is like in the whole what's the trilogy called? The Nightmare Museum. Yeah, Museum. Exact same relationship, right? Owen Wilson starts off at opposite ends with another male character, and at the end they're like best buddies. There was like Owen Wilson / that cowboy person character.
Jedediah, I believe his name was. Jedediah, I believe his name was.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah. So yeah, I love Owen Wilson mostly because of Wes Anderson movies. So yeah, I really can't pick faults with his performances. Where do you think this show's gonna go, like in the next few episodes?
So I hate to do the thing because there was the infamous all the talk about like Mephisto with WandaVision in terms of like introducing that character from the comics, and it never really amounted to anything. And so I think there are a couple ways I think it could go. I've seen things about maybe the time TVA is run by another Loki just to keep the theme of like all these different variants of the same character. I also
that'd be pretty cringy though. If it was another Loki, it would be like, it would be interesting, but I'd be like, oh, they're doing that again.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that's why my like pet like hopeful fan theory is the character Kang, the Conqueror from the comics, who's I think confirmed to be played by Jonathan Majors in one of the new Ant-Man movies coming up. I think it'd be interesting to see, just because that character from the comics would kind of fit with like a character that uses time and the control of time and time travel to bend to his own deeds. And like I think that would be an interesting kind of character to appear in like multiple different Marvel projects and like maybe become a big bad the way Thanos was. But I'm trying to keep my expectations in line, so I don't just have this expectation that my fan theory is confirmed and then get disappointed.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I don't know. TVA has been made. The show is portrayed in its narrative like TVA is such a huge, all-seeing enterprise, and it has been undefeated for ages and ages. So it better have a equally compelling character behind it, equally compelling influence behind it. So if it's not Mephisto, then someone just as good. But will they be able to pull it off? I don't know. Even Thanos' ending, the character of Thanos, I adore, but even the way they ended that is leaves much to be desired. But
I don't know if Khalin or Edward, you had any last thoughts?
I think that I think the show is going to be. I think this past episode was definitely better, and I think it's showing that it's going to go in a more compelling direction than, I mean, especially because like in the past Marvel, I mean, there's only been 2 other shows, but they have gone more into letting the ending wrap up in the last having unanswered like plot threads and then them being wrapped up in the last episode only. So I think getting into like reveals and stuff earlier into the episode, into the season is definitely good. And I mean, you know, it's probably going to get better just based on the post-credit scene. Like that stuff looks pretty interesting with
what was the post-credit scene? Sorry.
Oh, like there was like he got like stabbed by the lady and then he woke up in like some place and there were like other Lokis there, like, and one of them was an alligator, so that was cool.
Yeah. So it's implied.
I didn't see that.
It's implied that the pruning or whatever it's called is not necessarily killing you. It's just sending you some, who knows where, some other dimension.
I think it was
a dimension where all the other versions of you are present.
Were other ones that have gotten like stabbed, but that was in like New York. Like the ruin of New York was where he woke up. I read that on
is it always New York? Like, goddamn, there are so many other cities in the world, and it's always New York. You know, New York gets destroyed. If anything happens, it's always in New York. Okay, even your Loki cemetery is in New York.
Yeah. To be fair, it's like that in the comics too. I don't know, Edward. Do you have anything? Do you have any thoughts?
It's going to be interesting with the like the Loki variants. Like there are other Loki variants. We're going to find out like I guess like how they got there too, and then like, you know, it's going to be a lot of like question, which I could lead up right now. Like I think one of the biggest questions that I think I've seen right now is like, you know, like what was Sylvie's like Nexus event? And I'm pretty sure you guys have some idea about it. So like
that was just like her like existing, but maybe not, because like she's took a girl. I thought that's what it was.
Something random that just didn't fit into there. So I think the reason people bring up Kang is that like there's the idea that maybe the idea that there has to be this one timeline is the idea there's all these specific events have to transpire just right for him to succeed or fulfill this like grand villainous plan. I thought that's what was implied as too, that Sylvie just like wasn't anything important. That's just how it is with all the variants. It's just they get in the way of this specific narrative that the whoever's running the TVA wants. But I wouldn't be surprised too if there was more to it. Like there was a specific thing that in of itself meant more as an event.
One thing I'm interested about is that only the TVA has capabilities to like travel in time and travel in, you know, space, right? Like that, like in different timelines in different universes. So how did it even?
Pretty much, except for the Avengers, which I think.
But that was also very recent, right? Other than that, all of the how would the timelines even fight with each other, right?
Right. I guess
because like.
Well, it's probably like it was probably like propaganda, right? Like none of that actually happened.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Exactly.
But then what's the like point of controlling all the timelines if it's never gonna happen?
Because of like control. I don't know. If it's like a bad guy,
like they're not even controlling
anything. That's what they
anything.
Want, right? I don't know.
I think
it's not like they have ultimate power.
It was like the same way in Avengers Infinity War, I guess it was. Doctor Strange said, "Oh, there's only this one timeline where we do things this one way where we win." So I guess it's the idea that a villain could think the same thing, where it's like, let's create this imaginary sacred timeline because that's the one time if events go this way, that's the only one where I win. You know.
Mm-hmm. But like the TVA has been presented as like not necessarily unbiased, but doesn't really care whether villains win or the Avengers win or the heroes win. Right?
True, but
So
also
even if
they claimed that the timekeepers were these wise people running it, and now we know that they weren't really the ones in control. So the argument is they might lie about something else. And I think it's the same thing as like when Doctor Strange gave up the Infinity Stone in Infinity War. That yes, in the moment it seemed like why would he be helping Thanos win? But he knew that down the road it would help them. So maybe they think the Avengers winning this one conflict with Thanos would help them, even though they don't intend for the Avengers to win in the end, you know?
Right. I see. Yeah. So what we're all looking forward to is the show is looking forward to is the grand objective of TVA. And that could either go really well or really anticlimactic.
Which I think another like potential issue I think is being overly reliant on the grand reveal. I'm very it's done its job. I'm excited to find out what it is, but especially if you keep not having a reveal that is that interesting to people, like with WandaVision, if people know that's the only reason to watch the show, people might start tiring of watching these shows, in my opinion.
I don't know about that. People are not going to stop watching the show.
Well, okay. So
it's a Marvel show. People are going to watch
regardless, but less than they would have liked, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
I think
one cool thing would be that it does stand to reason that there'll be like more Mobiuses and Owen Wilson will like play more of himself because like he also got stabbed. So like that would be fun.
I really do like that.
I am excited for more Owen Wilson. Yeah. The more the merrier. He's a good actor.
Yeah. But we don't know why Sylvie was like, captured by the TVA, as that first scene, like that opening scene that we saw from episode 4, like that. Her name was Renslayer, right? The agent, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was her name. So like she knew. It seems like she was the one who captured Sylvie back in Asgard, and like she brought her up, and then Sylvie escaped. And of course, remember in the near end that we saw that Sylvie asked, like, do you know why I was, what was her Nexus event? And she said she doesn't remember. And I think that's what people want to know right now. And I think there's a lot of theories, but I think also like it seems like we noticed that Loki love for Sylvie. I think that's why she's being chased right now. It's kind of like I thought it was kind of obvious too, like when like Sylvie touched like Loki's hand, like because like the Lamadus was about to like crash out, and then we saw like the one branch, like that one branch was like going higher and higher than other, like and that's why how like the TVA caught the Loki's variants, and I think that's why she was being captured. I mean, that could be one theory. We will never know. Right? Like we will never know unless they get revealed somehow. But it is interesting.
Is the TVA just trying to prevent a massive Loki alliance, like multiverse Loki alliance? To what end?
I think that could be a possibility because like I think one thing that I'm really looking forward to right now is I think one movie that I think people will want to see right now is like Doctor Strange and the Madness of Multiverse. Like it seems like WandaVision and this show particularly are like kind of connected to Doctor Strange right now because it all involves with these like different timelines or like this magical stuff, and like it seems like Doctor Strange will probably when it's going to be released is probably going to show all these like clues and how these clues connect back to it. So, but yeah, I mean, and it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I thought like the TVA that it was like a fake thing was kind of obvious too because I was like, oh, it's gonna happen. Like I know it's like they're it's not like that. It's like some fake someone has been running, but we don't know who. I think that's the biggest question. Like, who created the TVA and what was the purpose of it? Like I think that's going to be the biggest question of like the
Right.
show, because Loki was like very skeptical and like, oh, why is there's this like three like timekeepers, like, who make these one sacred timeline to be there, but didn't the Avengers kind of went their own like timeline and like that kind of stuff, right? Of course,
Yeah.
like Loki doesn't know because it's the 2012 one, so he doesn't know. But as fan, we're like, oh, but it's kind of obvious. Like, there's no way like there's this timekeepers. Like, there's got to be some reason, and maybe well 5 and 6 maybe, but I feel like 5 probably going to talk about the Loki variants mostly. And I think I'm predicting, and 6 is probably like, oh, maybe Loki will see somehow, some way meet back the TVA, or like back to his, like, he sees Sylvie again, and somehow it's going to happen again. So like, but the thing is, who do you guys think is like the main villain? Because like, obviously we kind of like have like a hint of from like WandaVision. We had some hint about in the Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But this one, I think it's like one of the most, like, it's been four episodes, and we clearly don't know like the clear villain. So who do you guys think is like the clear villain? I guess because it's not the TVA, because like it's been busted because like the timekeepers are like run by androids. So who do you guys think is like the real villain of Loki?
I feel like that's what's the whole show is moving towards. That it's relying on its characters to keep us interested enough for the big reveal, right? And I think maybe it'll come next episode or the one after that. Probably not the next one, because maybe the next one will deal with more of like all the Loki variants that end up in New York. So the last one, hopefully, it'll answer some questions, or maybe it'll just leave us hanging like the last episode of WandaVision.
Yeah, I feel like waiting till the last episode to reveal the villain is kind of a stupid move, just because that basically just because if it's like an actual villain, it means there's not going to be a resolution, and that means this entire show is just filler for something else, which I don't think they should do. But
I
mean,
think they are going to do that.
They probably will. That's kind of how WandaVision ended. Like, it was like, oh, she's going to go save her kids. So like everything that happened beforehand was just so she could get the book and like study and have it like be a magic person.
This is what I hate about Marvel. Their over reliance on giving people a big enemy, a big reveal, and when they over rely on that, they just fall short in all the other smaller spaces, and that's what matters more, right? Like your character development, how much like you care about the plot episode to episode, rather than like seeing like the whole plot from like a holistic in a holistic way. It's
but they know people are going to go watch what they put out, so they don't really care about that.
But we're not going to like it every time, and like it's, if they keep doing this, people are gonna.
That doesn't mean that they're not going to watch the next thing, right? Like
they might just stop. People have stopped watching so many other shit that like became extremely famous overnight, or like over a decade, and then just totally lost traction. That's happened time and time again. And if Marvel keeps like thinking that we're just not taking its own audience seriously, and not realizing that we have matured as content consumers, they're probably gonna lose some business. Hopefully they lose this business. I want the downfall of Disney so bad.
I feel like
that's just me.
That's a whole different conversation. Yeah.
Anyway.
But I think that at the very least, the next episode is going to be like all of the like the Lokis, like I think that's going to reveal like what they're like fighting against, quote unquote fighting against, and then the final episode, like I feel like he'll get reunited with Sophie, and then they'll like fight. there'll probably be a sky beam in there somewhere, classic Marvel, and then
Yeah.
and then they'll tease like the next movie or something, and then that'll be it.
Yeah. That sounds very, very, Marvel playbook. Yeah. That's exactly like they're like, okay, we have, interesting introduction to hook people in, and then, your usual two best friends or or your team of best friends, going off doing adventures, and at the end we're gonna have like, a side shot of your villain being, all
there's
dark
gonna
and
there's gonna be
mysterious.
quips along the way, and there's gonna be mediocre fight choreography and a lot of quips along the way. But
yeah,
that'll be
and the quips have gotten so just underwhelming. Like they were fine when like I was 15 and the new Spider-Man movie just came out, and those I'd be like, oh damn, superhero movie with actual humor, because all I'd been used to was Batman from the DC verse. So yeah, maybe, but now it's totally lost its charm.
Yeah, like speaking of movies, like I have a list of like incoming movies. So like actually next Friday the release of Black Widow is gonna come out, and then we have.
I am so not excited about that movie.
That's
There's no way
think,
I'm gonna watch it.
That's what I think Yusra is getting at, is that like there's a lot of talk about superhero fatigue. And I don't know if I totally have that, but I definitely think I'm starting to have MCU fatigue. Just like looking at all the shows being released and all the movies being released, and I'm like, at this point, it's almost like, yeah, I always like to think of the MCU almost as like a really long-winded TV show, if that makes sense.
It's a
like
soap opera. Like, it's a soap opera.
Exactly. It's like, it's like if you think of each like movie or I guess show now as like a new episode in a larger narrative, like I feel like then the problem becomes, if that's the case, then we're in a place where there's a lot of filler right now and we're not totally clear on where it's all going. And I think that could be helped by if they land this multiverse stuff and give us a hint of what is coming. But I think the same with a lot of shows or like franchises right now. If you keep stringing on along the audience and don't tell us exactly where things are going with all these shows, there's going to be a limited ability to stay invested.
Like if you don't care about the characters and the show, like independently of the whole multiverse, then you're slowly gonna lose interest in the multiverse and the big picture as well. Like all the shows that do this, long-winded thing successfully are those that pay more attention to individual episodes and try to build them up as much as possible. And sometimes of course they fall short, like Doctor Who has so many episodes, but the best ones end up being not the ones that have that are connected to the whole arc, but rather independent ones where character focused, or they just pick an idea and run with it, right? They're not just moving back and forth between different things, which I think Marvel shows have suffered from. Marvel reminds me of like how the Game of Thrones trajectory. They had like some solid student seasons in the beginning, and they were like, okay, how can we really care, like really deliver the end without caring about any of the middle, right? And that's what they did, and it totally fell flat. And I don't know. I don't want that for Marvel because I don't know, like the characters more than I did for Game of Thrones, of course. But if they keep doing this, then that's something that might happen.
Obligated to mention Stranger Things if we're talking about shows seemingly on a decline too.
Isn't season 4 about to like air next year or so?
They won't tell a release date, which is another thing. They are giving these vague teasers, which it kind of goes to the point we were all making about like stringing along a fandom. We'll see. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm cautious.
We always have fan fiction. It's fine.
Yeah, cautious about my expectations right now.
Yeah.
We good?
I think so. That Black Widow just went off, but yeah, I mean, there are upcoming movies. I think one thing that Marvel are kind of like, I mean, this is their new route, kind of like this is kind of like their, I guess, new territory. Because I'm pretty sure like they did release like other Marvel shows, but they're like it's okay, like they're like the Agent of Shield, like that was like
They've been doing
like
this for ages. The whole Daredevil thing. No, Hell's
yeah,
Kitchen.
so it's like
Trio. I don't know.
like a
Four
it's like
people.
a well like Marvel is like this is like they're not known for shows, I guess, like as compared to like movies. And this is like their new branch because like, after the end game, like, what's next for them, it was like the hardest. And I was pretty interested how what is their next step because it seems like you can't let it die like that. Like Marvel can't let it die like that. So
I think maybe they feel that television shows will generate more revenue now, especially since like
yeah,
more people watch television shows than movies these days. More people stream it online, and I don't know, get more invested in it as like a fandom thing and like a thing that you keep you keep up with. So and all the actors, all the famous actors want to get into TV because of that same reason. So earlier, with like Daredevil and like Angel of Shields, right? Angels? No, Agents of Shield, right? Yeah. So they used to have like pretty unknown actors, even if they were like semi-unknown. They were not like
that's where I'm at.
yeah, or like characters that have already gained a following. They were pretty new. So now they're bringing in massive names that are sure to attract traction from even non-Marvel fans. Of course, people are gonna watch a show with Tom Hiddleston in it. So yeah, it's purely like it's less narrative and like it's less of a creative adventure or like they're not trying things with their narrative. They're just trying to make money, and they've got it. They've got they've got all the things that make money in their show, and it's successful. Right? Yeah.
I think now this is where a point where people are like kind of wants like movie experience back. Like I kind of felt that too,
Because of
especially
the
like
pandemic.
especially I think like especially after like episode 3 of Loki, I'm like, I don't know where's this going. It's kind of getting boring, honestly. So
I
like
think that's another I think missed problem or like missed potential with the shows. I almost feel like the shows, especially with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just felt like they could have been like a movie if you just cut all the filler. And it just feels like instead you could have used the shows as a way to do more creative or different things instead of just like a movie but with filler. I almost feel
Exactly.
like if we go back to the analogy that like the MCU is just basically a giant show, like the Endgame was just like a big season 1 finale. Like we're in like the season 2 growing pains of the MCU, where it's like they're trying a bunch of stuff, but they don't totally know what's going to stick yet, and it could just like go off the deep end, or they could figure out how they're going to continue this more.
But it is another interesting, another fact, another I guess like X factor is like the pandemic, and a lot of production had to like do some stuff. So like maybe that's why they couldn't do as effort or like because the time limits and everything. So like I have to give them credit because like because they are a big company and like people will be like, hey, where's this show, like we want it. And like if they couldn't deliver because like they want to put so much effort to it and like the time constraint, so like there has to be, I guess there's some, I guess like yeah, a little bit like we should give them a little bit of break because like nobody expected like a pandemic. So like so like I think I'm not saying that the shows were like horrible. It's just like I understand like why there have to be so many cuts and fillers because like like the time constraint of like making these shows and stuff. And shows are hard, like definitely. So like I guess that's why I'm kind of excited for the movies. Like Black Widow's like okay, like it's kind of cool, but not really. I thought the Shang-Chi, it's like the Asian version, like the Asian superhero. So like that's going to be a little bit interesting because it is a little bit different from like a typical Marvel movie. And then the internals, like we've been asking this question, I think, like since like the Infinity War, or like the when the first Avengers came out, like we know about these internals, and yeah, so like I thought that's going to be interesting. And then of course like the Doctor Strange, because of the two shows we've been talking, like WandaVision and Loki, like feel like Doctor Strange will be the one that maybe answer all the questions that fans were asking. And then yeah, the
I
Spider-Man
think
had like
Marvel really needs right now is to like try something very risky in terms of
I think that's what
it's something that
WandaVision was like to them, like to do a show where like or to do, first of all, do a streaming show, and then also to do something where like the beginning wasn't just like a normal Marvel thing. Like the
yeah.
beginning
I
two
mean,
episodes were like just weird, right? Like
yeah, for sure.
so I think that honestly I think like the only Marvel thing I'm kind of interested in is the Eternals, not just because like Jon Snow and Robb Stark are going to be in it, like
Really?
yeah, so like
Yeah.
that's cool. But like honestly, like I do not see myself going to a theater to watch any Marvel stuff like anytime.
I'm not, probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of the three coming up, I'm probably most interested in Eternals, especially because Chloe Zhao, I think, has a good reputation. I think, but I'm most interested by far in Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. I think Spider-Man, with all the rumors of like the different versions of Spider-Man, as well as just like the character arc of Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and Zendaya's MJ, as well as
The
Sam Raimi's
Sony,
Doctor
we have
Strange sequel. What are you saying?
the Spider-Man, like the Sony company, like, oh, what they're gonna do about it, and then, like Disney is not going, like Disney can't do this, like like Sony, we're like, so like, oh, what happened to Tom Holland? I think there was that backstory too, right?
Yeah, no,
I
definitely. So
thought
it's nice to get that movie even, but also the Doctor Strange movie. I think that's kind of going to be the point that you have, that the MCU kind of needs to put up or shut up. In that, like, you get Sam Raimi to direct a movie called with the title Multiverse of Madness, like it has to be interesting, if it's still feeling generic after I walk out of that movie, then I might. I think my interest in the MCU will have definitely waned quite a bit.
For more videos from M2M, check out our other playlists.